anybody voting against him would be doing a great disservice to the country.
Well, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska just moments ago, breaking news this morning, posted this on X. I have had numerous constructive meetings with Mr. Blanche, and he comes across as decent and capable. I appreciate the trip he made to learn more about Alaska, including our rural areas. And as acting attorney general, he's made several noteworthy decisions that will benefit our state and the nation. Ultimately, however, I will oppose his nomination. The politicization, even weaponization of the department did not start with this administration, but has accelerated during it. I take issue with the handling of the release of the Epstein files, the sweeping immunity protections granted to the president, his family, and their businesses, the statements that have been made to anti-abortion groups, and the repeated targeting of individuals ranging from former administration staff to sitting U.S. senators. I am also keenly aware that the department's nearly $2 billion slush fund, which likely would have rewarded January 6th protesters, that's a generous term, some of them convicted felons, is only off the table because this nomination is pending and the Senate has leverage. Once we vote, that will end and there's no telling what the future holds. The country needs an attorney general who will check the worst impulses of this administration. I hope Mr. Blanche is able to achieve that if confirmed, but I simply do not have confidence that that will be the case. Senator Murkowski, as of a few minutes ago, is a no, Ali Vitale, on Todd Blanche. So Donald Trump exuding a little confidence there in the Oval Office yesterday might be a little tighter this morning. A lot of eyes now on Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, which will be a fascinating vote because he effectively was run out of office and had his political career ended just a couple of months ago by Donald Trump.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of the president's own actions. And ultimately, we will see how Cassidy votes. But that is where the focus is going to be this morning, because a little bit of Senate math for you. With McConnell out, that means that we are not working with our normal 100 senators. And so it really does leave Cassidy to be the person where if he votes yes, the nomination is fine. And if he votes no, it's tanked. You don't get the opportunity to go to a tie and have Vice President Vance break it. And so with Collins and Murkowski now voting against, that really does leave all the marbles to the senator from Louisiana. And he has been mum in the hallways at times when he's been asked by reporters in recent days. He said, well, when is the vote? Effectively insinuating that we won't know how he's going to decide until we get to that point. But the question of when is the vote is actually an important one right now, because the Senate is on the cusp of leaving town for the rest of the month of August. And this is not something that, if you heard John Thune when he left the Capitol last night, there is a time agreement to start voting around 11:30 this morning on some of the things they have to do on their to-do list. But the Blanche nomination was not immediately one of them. And so I think the open question as we start the day is, does Leader Thune force this on the floor and in full view put Bill Cassidy's decision on display, whatever it is? Or is this something where they table it, they say, let's go home for August, don't leave on what could be an embarrassing note if the votes aren't there, and then figure out what do we do in September? From a practical perspective, it doesn't change anything. Blanche is still acting. You just have a few more letters in front of his name. But at the same time, it could be a true instance of, is this finally the moment where YOLO isn't leverage? The L actually stands for live, and they're just voting the way that they feel they need to. Political consequences be damned.
Yeah, we had Senator Tom Tillis on our air yesterday. Willie and I talked to him, and he said, he was obviously very opposed to the weaponization fund and the IRS protections originally, but he and John Cornyn came around after he got some assurances. But it's been pointed out by many, those assurances maybe not worth all that much. But Tillis did say, and you noticed this as well, Jim VandeHei Tillis was like, look, at the end of the day, I'm a Republican. I want Republicans to win. Yeah. So that might be where Bill Cassidy ends up landing as well, even though obviously he's not running again, and I'm sure has some pretty hard feelings about President Trump. Weigh in on that dynamic, but also even the fact that it's gotten to this point, piggybacking on what Ali said, these are the consequences when President Trump goes after sitting senators, when he alienates members of his own party. And we're starting to see, let's be clear, there's no Republican revolt just yet, but we're starting to see the limits, if you will, of Trump's power here.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. There's like 3 or 4 senators who occasionally challenge the president. For the most part, they all salute and fall in line. In this case, he is a victim of his own words, his own actions. He goes after these senators. He says things about them. They get a chance for a little bit of payback. That has to be sitting in their head. They're human when determining whether or not they're going to help them. Again, but let's be clear on Todd Blanche. To be brutally honest, it doesn't matter that much. If he doesn't get confirmed, he can still have the job and still do all the things that Trump wants him to do. And no matter what senators want to do, the Justice Department explicitly is an arm of both vengeance and protection for the president. They've been very clear. Just watch what they're doing, watch what they choose to focus on, even why Blanche is so popular with the president himself. Nothing about this debate is going to change that. They've changed the very nature of the Justice Department. And for those people that cheer it, again, I would just remind you, are you going to be really comfortable with that when a Democrat does the exact same thing, takes the Justice Department, says there's no more independence, says I'm going to use that to go after my critics, I'm going to use that to protect me, might even give myself a little bit of immunity along the way. Better be comfortable with it, because that's a precedent that has now been set. And Republicans aren't going to do anything to stop that after this vote.
And even Senator Tillis yesterday drawing some equivalencies false in the eyes of many between this Justice Department and some of the things the Biden administration and its Justice Department did. Obviously, there's not much of a comparison. Jim, let me just ask you, why would Bill Cassidy, these guys, when you talk to them privately, they know fundamentally that someone who was the president's personal attorney and has done all this work on his behalf since then as the acting attorney general shouldn't be the attorney general, right? If it were Joe Biden or Barack Obama's personal attorney, they'd be up in arms and calling for the impeachment of the president. But Cassidy especially, he's on the way out. He's not running for re-election, doesn't owe the president anything. The president danced on his grave after he had him defeated in a primary in Louisiana. Why would he vote yes on Todd Blanche?
I mean, bluntly, never underestimate the seductive power of getting the president to like you or getting the vast majority of Republicans to say attaboy. There's just something kind of high schoolish about all of us that never changes. People just want to be part of a team, and you see that. It's so powerful. I see it every single day, and I still marvel at it, because we talk to so many of these people. I know what they actually think about the president. I know what they say about the president. Then I watch what they say in public, and I watch the way that they vote, and I'm like, man, you're an extremely accomplished person. You've done massive things with your life. You're fundamentally a pretty good guy, and yet you keep doing these votes or saying things that I know are not true. And that's not one or two people. That's the vast majority of Republicans. Let's be clear. There's not a single, well, there might be a couple. There's a couple of Republicans that are fine with everything that Trump does, but they really don't want to be talking about any of these topics. They're looking at this Senate map and they're saying, holy hell, how did we get to the point where we could lose Alaska? We could lose Ohio. We could lose these Republican states that we should never possibly have. We could lose Texas. None of these things should be in discussion. So if you're operating as a highly functional Republican Party, you would have thought about getting the best candidates, the right issues, so that you can win and extend your majority in the Senate, knowing that the next Senate map works against you. But they can't do any of that. They're powerless. It's why John Thune, little by little, is saying, whatever, I'm not just going to do what the president wants to do, and I feel pretty good that my guys are going to vote for me at the end of the day. They're just exhausted. They're just frustrated. But there's nothing they can do, and I don't behaviorally beyond 3 or 4, nothing's going to change.